Hi, everyone. I'm really glad you're here. This is my first time ever going live, so we're keeping it real and relational. If you're joining live, welcome. And if you're watching the replay, I'm really glad you found your way here too. My name is Jacqueline Long, and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist with an entire team that supports parents all throughout California. And this is Self-Led Parenting Live, a space where we talk about parenting, our inner systems, and what it actually looks like to show up for our kids and ourselves with a spirit of compassionate curiosity and warm, confident connection. But that being said, I want to say this out loud, a little secret. I'm not a perfect parent. I'm learning and growing. And you don't need to be perfect either. You don't need to be doing parenting right to be here. You don't need to be calm, patient, or all figured out. You're welcome here exactly as you are. This will be an ongoing, question-driven series, and that means I'll be responding to your questions each week. So please type your questions in the chat. Today, I'll share a personal story. I'll reflect on a real parenting question that came from a recent internal family systems workshop we offered. And I'll close with a letter from a teen's perspective at the end. So if you can, I do encourage you to stay through the full time together. Let's begin. So the year was 1990, and I was 14 years old, getting ready to go to a swim practice, and the Oprah Winfrey Show was on. And there was a man's voice, John Bradshaw, who was guiding the audience through an exercise. He invited everyone to close their eyes and go inside. And I closed my eyes, and I went inside. And he led an exercise that ended up being really powerful for me. He guided us to connect with our little one inside, our inner child. He had us see what that child was seeing. He had us witness that child's experience. He had us connect with that child from our present day selves, my then 14-year-old self. It was really touching and really beautiful. And in the end, he invited us to welcome that inner child from our youngest memories, our earliest memories, to welcome that child into the present, to come and be with us. I remember that tears were streaming down my eyes. I was deeply, deeply moved and impacted by that moment of what felt like healing inside. And today, as a marriage and family therapist, I get to offer these kinds of experiences for people several times a week. The opportunity to go inside and relate to the little ones inside of them. That experience in 1990, when I was just 14 years old, has shaped my life. And it's also let me know in a very real way that we do have an inner life, that it's possible to befriend these parts of us inside. We can think of it like a Russian doll, where we have this outside that might be soldiering on. And we might have protective parts of us inside that protect the more vulnerable, younger ones in us that might be carrying some pain or some tears, and that might be in need of our loving attention and care. So on the outside, it might seem like we're soldiering on, and most of us on the inside have little vulnerable ones in need of some care and love and softness from us. So I'm grateful for that moment. Thanks to Oprah for showing me what's possible, for showing me that healing is possible, that it's possible to befriend our internal life and to be kind to ourselves on the inside. And I just want us to pause for a moment to take a breath together, to really acknowledge that healing is possible. Many of you watching right now are parents who care very deeply about your kids. Some of you might even be grandparents. And no matter what, no matter when, I truly believe that healing is possible for us, for our little ones inside, and also for future generations to come. And that's part of the reason why I love the internal family systems model. It's a model of hope. It's a model of healing, change, and transformation. And at Mindful Child and Family Therapy, we recently hosted Katie Ivanovich, who offered a really wonderful workshop on IFS for kids and parents. And there was a great question that came from that workshop. And I'll offer that question today. And in future episodes, I'll be answering and responding to your questions. So again, please feel free to write your questions in the chat. I will look at them and I'll collate them and respond to them moving forward. So this question was about, what should I do when a teen keeps knocking over their glass of water? And I keep telling them to stop and they keep knocking over the glass of water. So I will respond in an embodied way. I'm going to take this on as though this was my own child, even though it's not. And I'll show you how I would work with it if this issue was happening for me. I think that's the best way because I can kind of embody it and show you a process around how we might work with parents with this. So probably if my child or my teen was doing something again and again and again, it would activate something inside of me. So just take a moment. If your teen or your child was doing something again and again and again, and you kept asking them not to and kept trying to work with them on it and they kept doing it, just notice what might happen inside of you, even starting with your body, where you might find any sensations in or around your body around that. I notice as I think about it, I start to feel a little tight and tense and bracing inside. A sense of something bracing. And I also notice a voice that would sound something like, come on, how many times do I have to tell you? Kind of a frustrated, angry voice would be coming out. Also a voice that would sound something like, don't just sit there, do something, clean it up, in a kind of a frustrated, tense way. So that's something that would probably be coming up inside of me. And I'm just going to act this out a little bit. I find that it's helpful to act things out. So let's say this was at my house, happening at my house. And this was the table. And my teen reached for something and knocked over the glass. I would probably be standing there bracing and tense and frustrated inside. Let's say this was the 100th time it happened this week. And I might speak from this place of constriction and frustration. And I might, biting my tongue, kind of holding back a little bit, be saying something like, could you please pick that up? But with a sense of frustration and holding back this angry part a bit. What would be happening inside of me in that moment is actually two different parts of me. A part that was angry and frustrated with my teen, and a part of me that was trying to hold back my frustration and anger. So they would be a little bit at war inside. I'd want to be saying something like, really, again, you do this every day. How many times do you have to do this to know that you just need to move the glass over just a little bit so you don't knock it over? Come on. So that's what the angry part of me might be feeling. I'm sure you can relate and resonate. But there would be another force inside of me that would be holding that back, saying something like, no, don't get mad, please stop, please don't get mad, it's not going to help. And it would be reining in that frustration. So without knowing any of this, that's just happening in an instant. And what would come out would be something like, can you please pick that up? Kind of more restrained than the anger part of me, but also not completely relaxed or connected. So what I would recommend for myself if this were my child is I would recommend doing a U-turn. My energy would be focused on my teen, pointing my finger at my teen, doing this 100 times. And when all of my energy and attention is pointing out there at someone, and there's a lot of what I call you energy. You have been doing this every day. Can't you just do this differently? You. Anytime we point our finger at someone else, we can notice that there's 3 fingers pointing back at ourselves. And that's a nice visual cue for what we call in internal family systems a U-turn. The opportunity to turn inward towards ourselves and notice what's happening inside of us, the parent. We also say in internal family systems that our children are our greatest tormentors, which really means they're our greatest mentors. Our tormentors are our greatest mentors, showing us our trailheads, little signposts inside that are the beginning of a healing journey for us as parents. So I would take this activated moment. I might talk about it with my husband first and talk to him about how frustrated I am that our son keeps knocking over the glass. And I would set up a session with my therapist. And I would set the intention to focus on that frustrating moment with my therapist. And in an internal family system session, I would begin to get to know the frustrated part of me a little bit better. And I would also see how it was a little bit at war with the one that's trying to manage it. Hello, doorbell. Of course, there's a doorbell ringing and YouTube Live. So anyway, I would be getting to know these 2 parts of myself and how they're interacting. I'd be talking to the therapist about them, and the therapist would help me unblend from and befriend these parts. So instead of acting out from them, I'd be, bringing them out in front of me in a way. And there's different ways of doing that through externalization practices, through having a pillow represent each one of them, or I'm using my hands right now to represent each one of them. So maybe my anger was in my left hand and my one that was managing the anger was in the right hand. I might even have in my right hand one that was shaming me or my system for feeling angry at my child or for getting angry at my child. And that's a very common dynamic. There's a part of us that might rush in very quickly with some hot energy. We call them firefighters. And another part that's trying to manage that one by having us act well and be kind and be gentle. And they might be at war within us as a parent. So in the moment, my angry part might come out and get really upset at my son. And then later I might feel a lot of shame about that and put myself down for getting upset at him. And so I'd be working with my therapist to unblend from these parts of me. They're just parts. They're not all of me. I'm not all angry and I'm not all shaming of myself. They're just different states inside of me. And so my therapist would help me unblend from and befriend these different parts of me. My therapist would help me understand that both of these parts of me are really loving towards me. Both of these parts of me really care about me deeply. And both of these parts of me have good intentions for me and my system. I'd start getting more curious and I'd start trying to understand each part of me better and what they're protecting inside. And I'd start getting curious about what that vulnerable one inside of me needs. So these protective parts are protecting something more vulnerable inside. And over time, I start becoming more and more aware of what's really needed from me inside. But in the meantime, we're going to have more interactions back at home. My son is going to keep knocking his glass over, and I'm going to keep having that internal struggle, trying to figure out what to do, how to respond. It doesn't happen overnight. I'm not going to change so much how I interact with my son overnight. It's going to take some time. It's going to take a few weeks. It's a trailhead after all. It's the signpost for a healing journey, and healing journeys take some time. And I think that's important for us to be gentle with ourselves, that, after just a couple of weeks, we don't necessarily see change right away. It takes some time to develop a relationship with our inner lives. It takes some time to get to know these parts of us inside, to more deeply understand what they really need from us, and to offer that. It's a process. It's a healing journey. But over time, as I sit with my therapist and I unburden parts of me that have been holding a lot of pain, and I develop a sense of trust between me and these parts of me, and these parts of me start to trust me to lead the system more, I can bring something different to my son in those moments. So when the same thing happens for the 300th time, I might say, the best part about making an oopsies is you get to clean it up. And then I might just watch as he cleans it up. So I might sing a song. I'd still hold him accountable. I wouldn't take the consequence away. He spilled the water and it's important to clean it up. But maybe I'd be a little softer instead of trying harder to get him to stop knocking this glass over. I'd try softer. Over time, there'd be less tension in my system. I'd be less at war with myself. I'd be able to shine more confidence on him that he's going to figure this out. And feeling my relaxed ease and my warm connection, my self-leadership, he would figure it out. So that's my response, is I would recommend doing a U-turn, dear parent. Instead of focusing on trying to get your kid to stop knocking that glass over, I recommend that you look inside yourself. Find what that signpost is for you. See your child as a tormentor, your greatest mentor, helping you to begin another healing journey for yourself. I recommend you get the support you need. Maybe in addition to having your child get support. Because at our offices at Mindful Child and Family Therapy in the San Francisco Bay Area, we really do see the most change happen in the children and teens we support when the parents start their own healing journeys. So please feel free to write some questions. And again, I will review your questions after this is all over. Jaylene Salas is also here with us, and she'll be responding to some of the questions you have. If you have any questions about our services or any questions about internal family systems, feel free to ask, and she can reply now, and I'll also reply afterwards. But before we end today, I'd like to do something different. So at the end of each Self-Led Parenting Live, I'll be reading a short letter written from the perspective of a child or teen to the adults in their lives. These letters are meant to help us remember what it can feel like on the inside of childhood, especially for sensitive, emotionally intense, and misunderstood kids. And as you listen, I invite you to not analyze or fix anything. Just notice what resonates or what stirs gently inside you. I'll read the letter now. An open letter from a teen who's been paying attention. Dear parent, I know you think I'm not watching anymore. I know you think I'm distracted, checked out, glued to my phone, or lost in my own world. But I'm still paying attention. just differently. Teenagers notice patterns. We notice tone shifts, voice changes, and body tension. We notice what gets tight in the room before anyone says a word. And because my nervous system is sensitive, I notice more than most. A few things I've learned about you. I've learned that you carry a lot. I can tell when your responsible part is driving. It's the one that keeps track of schedules, expectations, deadlines, and what's supposed to happen by now. That part sounds confident, but it's tired, and I can tell. One part of you that needs me to be okay. I've noticed that when I'm not okay, something in you gets scared. You might call it concern or love. But from the inside, it feels like urgency and worry about me. That's when you ask questions fast. That's when your voice changes just a little. That's when solutions start lining up before I've even finished talking. I know that part is trying to protect me, or you, or well, I guess both of us. But sometimes when that part takes over, my system hears, you need to be better so I can finally relax. And that's usually when I stop talking. Here's something I don't think you realize. I know a lot about your childhood, not the details, but the emotional climate. I can feel when my struggles bump up against something that seems old in you. Like when my anxiety touches a place in you that you were never allowed to express. Or when my anger activates feelings in you that you were never permitted to feel. Or when my sensitivity brushes up against a story you learned, maybe about being too much or not enough. Sometimes it feels like I'm carrying my feelings and yours. Not because you ask me to, but because our nervous systems talk to each other in silent ways. On my silence. When I pull away, it's not because I don't need you. It's often because I'm trying to figure out where I end and where you begin. I need a little more time for this untangling. See, I'm building my own inner world, and that takes a lot of time, energy, and sorting out. When I go quiet, it's usually because I don't have the language yet, or I don't want to overwhelm you, or maybe I'm protecting something tender, or I'm overwhelmed myself. My silence doesn't mean I'm indifferent to you. Sometimes it means I'm still sorting things out inside on my own parts. Since we're being honest, I have parts too. I have a part that wants independence immediately, like yesterday. I have a part that still wants reassurance, a part that feels deeply and doesn't know where to put it all, a part that's afraid of disappointing you, a part that's afraid of becoming you, a part that's afraid of not becoming you. They don't always agree, but neither do yours. What actually helps, maybe more than you know? It helps when you notice yourself before you react. When you say something like, I think this is bringing up a lot for me, or I don't fully understand this yet, but I really want to. When you slow your body down even a little, my nervous system feels less alone. When you don't make my growth a reflection of your parenting, I can breathe again. A few things I wish parents of teens like me knew. Pulling away is not the same as disconnecting. Sensitivity doesn't disappear when I'm a teen. It just goes underground. Anxiety is often about safety, but it shows up as my defiance or my laziness. When you regulate yourself, you give me permission to do the same. I don't need you to be perfect. I need you to be aware, real, and reachable. We're both doing something hard here as we get to know ourselves better. growing up, becoming more aware, and letting go. Love, your teen with a sensitive nervous system. So here are some honest takeaways that we'd like you to take home. For parents, teen silence often protects something still forming. Intergenerational patterns show up under stress, even with the best of intentions. Parents' urgency can unintentionally amplify teen anxiety. Taking a moment to pause, do a U-turn, and name your own internal experience can lower defenses on both sides. And connection in adolescence looks quieter, slower, and less obvious, but it still matters deeply. Written from therapists at Mindful Child and Family Therapy who sit with families like yours every day. So as we begin to wrap up, I'd like to invite you to pause and take a moment to notice what you're leaving with today. Maybe it's a new concept. Maybe it's a little more softness towards your inner life. Maybe it's a little hope. Maybe it's simply the reminder that you're not alone. Self-led parenting isn't about doing more. It's about relating differently, relating inwardly, especially when things are hard. And that happens slowly, over time, in very human ways. So thank you for spending this time with me. Whether you join live or you're watching later, I'm really glad you're here. And I'll be back again next week at 12 p.m. on Tuesdays moving forward. So join me live for lunch on Tuesdays at 12 p.m. Pacific time. And until then, take really good care of yourselves and the parts of you that show up, maybe needing some softness when parenting is hard. See you next Tuesday at 12.